Good evening. Tonight we talk about the health of the city of Baton Rouge and the parish with our mayor president. Roll it, Kyle. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you. It's good to be back with you. Tonight we're going to talk with Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome and the new CAO at City Parish Government. Mayor Broome is entering the midway point of her second term as president of East Baton Rouge Parish and the mayor of the city of Baton Rouge. And Mayor, we'll get into all of that, but I kind of want to start with something that's a little bit somber. Earlier this week, some kids, students of Southern University, were on their way home on the side of the road, changing a tire, and ended up getting hit by a semi on 49. And I just blown away by that. A couple weeks before Christmas to have something like this happen, and want to give you a chance to offer some thoughts about that.
Yeah, certainly this tragedy has impacted not only the Southern University campus, but our entire community. When you have three young people, vibrant young people who had a great future ahead of them, to have their lives taken away from them so tragically on their way home, it has certainly not only impacted me, but everyone that I talk to. I have young people in my office who are student grads. I have one young lady who has played in the human jukebox. So our hearts and our prayers go out to the family. I got a text from one of my close friends in Dallas who heard about it because they were headed to the Dallas area, I believe. And so it's not only touching our community and our city, but nationally, I believe it has certainly touched the hearts of so many individuals. And so we will continue to pray and lift up their families and reach out to them as well.
I got a son at Southern now, and we talked about it yesterday, and just like you said, it's impacted that entire campus, and not everybody knew them, but I mean, there's a huge familial atmosphere up on the bluff. You don't often get to talk about these kinds of things, and people don't get to see you in the capacity of the person behind the title, but you generally get a text or call almost every time there is a homicide or some incident in the city. And to kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I, in addition to being the mayor president, and contrary to what people may think, I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and so I feel the pain, not directly, but I certainly feel my heart goes out to people in times like this. It's not easy for me, I will be very honest with you, when I have to call families who have lost loved ones. Sometimes I feel at a loss of words, but I lean into my faith quite a bit to offer not only the prayers, but the encouragement and love that people need during this time. And it's not always easy. And so, but I do feel it's necessary for me to show that our community loves and wants to reach out and offer a response and show our care and concern for those who are dealing with a crisis.
There is such a hyper partisan posture to media, dialogue, just all of that across the board. And then you still have to govern. So what's your perspective on that? And I know that some of the criticism comes with the territory. You get the big jobs, get the big criticism. But what about the criticism do you think is either just on its face inaccurate or in some ways just downright destructive?
Well, let me start by sharing this with you, Clay. This week, and it connects to what you're saying, I participated in a national panel on civility in America.
Okay. Wow.
And it dealt with local elected officials, different areas, but the the data shows that there has been an increase in a lack of civility for quite some time now, and it's growing. And I would say that some of that is fueled by the sensationalism that often takes place,
Sure.
whether it's social media, whether it's traditional media. And I believe that there's an opportunity for media, because of the power that they have, to help unite folks instead of dividing us. And this partisan politics is just not helping anyone.
Look, we're going to continue with Mayor Broome and also talk to Glenn Curtis, who's a new CAO in her administration. Talk about public safety, what's happening with infrastructure here. We spoke earlier in the year about it. We'll get an update with Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome back in just a moment. Back with Mayor President Broome, talking about what's happening here in the city and in the parish. You know, public safety obviously is top of mind around the country, and Baton Rouge is no different. Talk a little bit about what your administration is doing to address public safety, if you don't mind.
Well, Clay, we know that public safety is a priority. It's a priority for this administration, and it's a priority for our citizens, and rightfully so. And while we have seen a decrease in numbers in terms of homicides, we certainly acknowledge that we have work to do still. And I am glad that our Baton Rouge Police Department, for example, has implemented some 21st century technology practices that are helping us not only capture information, but provide information with our real-time crime center. Another tool that we're using is the Connect Blue, of course, which allows citizens to register street-facing cameras with the Real-Time Crime Center. So I believe initiatives like that, in addition to initiatives in the community, our community outreach, such as Safe, Hopeful, Healthy work that we're doing.
Tell people about Safe, Hopeful,
Healthy.
And
Clay, I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that we're finding out in our administration, and we're trying to improve on that, is that there are a lot of things that are taking place, making a difference, but the word is not getting out to people. So, for example, Safe, Hopeful, Healthy is our initiative from a community-based approach to address crime. We're focusing on mental health. We're focusing on resources, making sure that people are connected, youth programs. And so all of that is housed under Safe, Hopeful, Healthy, as well as we have boots on the ground, individuals from various organizations, as well as the street team that connects with people in the community. I believe if you talk to Chief Paul, he will tell you that the connection with the community has certainly improved over the years in terms of them providing information, not only on crimes that have taken place, but to help prevent. So we've often talked about that gap between the police and the community. That gap is closing.
It is.
And recently, we just announced the partnership with all of the various agencies that work in law enforcement, from federal agencies to our local sheriff and our police department. All now are collaborating, meeting on a regular basis, sharing information as well as resources.
So, you know, I've talked about this a lot for people who've watched that. A lot of people talk about crime, and they talk about addressing the homicides and the shootings. And I've maintained you have to invest in these parts of our city that lack either resources or direction, because if you don't diminish the number of criminals, you can't truly impact the percentage of crime in an area. And I don't mean just incarceration. We've got 11, 12, and 13-year-old hardened killers on the streets of America.
Absolutely.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
You have to invest in them. And I think that the days of thinking you can just arrest your way out of this, that's all over with now.
Oh, absolutely. If you talk to any type of sociologist or crime specialist, whatever you want to call them, they will tell you, you have to have a combined approach.
Right.
It just can't be law enforcement. It
Right.
has to be programs. It has to be outreach, and that is certainly one of the things that we have recognized and what we are trying to do and to improve on in terms of community outreach, offering resources, offering programs.
We have about 90 seconds left in this segment, then we'll come back, and Glenn Curtis is going to join us here on set. But I want to start at least by asking about where we are as it relates to infrastructure. We talked earlier in the year about the investments being made. We had a rainy period during this year. Doesn't seem so much right now. Where are we as it relates to infrastructure?
Well, first of all, of course, let me start by talking about our Move VBR program. 70 projects total. They are rolling out in a timely manner.
Okay.
I believe people in various areas of town are noticing the work that's being done. That is thanks to our citizens who helped us pass the Move VBR initiative. Secondly, I will tell you that we recognize that we have to continue to work on our stormwater and a drainage issue, making sure that we're in compliance. We have invested $56 million of ARPA money towards for the past year and a half towards those issues. And I will be investing more because we've looked very closely at our budget to see where we could find additional money to help us with that area. In that area, but we know that when it rains in Baton Rouge, you know, it's a big deal in many instances, and we are moving the needle. I don't want people to think we're not. We're moving the needle, but it's, you know,
takes some time.
Yeah, and the other thing
hang on, I got 10 seconds here. 10 seconds here, rushing us to break. 10 seconds. Glenn Curtis is going to join us in the next segment as we continue to talk about infrastructure. Stay right there. Give me 2 minutes. So as you can see, we have another person here at the desk, Glenn Curtis, new to the desk, new to the administration. We'll get to him in just a second, but you were talking about infrastructure and specifically towards stormwater, which hadn't been in the news a whole lot lately. So let's talk about where that is.
I just, want, first of all, people to know that we're investing $56 million of our ARPA funds. We're looking for other paths forward. I'm going to have some other announcements that I will be making that I believe the citizens will embrace as we move forward in this discussion. But also I want people to know all the work that we've been doing to clean out our drainage, to clean out our canals. We have removed 22 million pounds of debris from nearly 80 miles of drainage ways, and we've done that over the last year and a half. And most recently, people will recognize that we have been draining out and cleaning out, I should say, Ward Creek and Clay Cut. So we've got a lot more work to do as it relates to infrastructure here in our great city.
How long is that plan as it relates to this phase of the plan, which with either both cleaning out these areas and then some of the other work that you're doing?
Well, it's a long-term, yearly plan that we are working on, and so our DPW team will be glad to come on and share.
All right, listen, I'd love
you.
that because Fred was here earlier this year and he talked about how people don't understand the process, that in some cases you can't move a log in a waterway without the Army Corps green lighting it.
Correct.
And then there's a long list of other cities that you're in the line with, so it's a technical thing. So Glenn Curtis is new to the team, and we were talking before we started the show. First of all, let me ask you, why was he the right guy to come in after Daryl Gissel retired?
Well, first of all, kudos, much love, and appreciation to Daryl Gissel, who has been by my side for the past 5 years. For those who don't know about Daryl, Daryl has another hat that he wears as a realtor, and needed to get back to that work. But look, you're going to see him on boards, commissions. He's going to be the ambassador for us in the city, so he will be missed. But I'm very fortunate to have retired Major General Glenn Curtis. First of all, he's worked for 2 governors. That spoke volumes to me. While his work was with the National Guard, he had 11,000 people under his command.
Right.
And one of the things that's important in city parish government is that we have to have a strategic plan. And organizational soundness and strength, and I felt that those were two assets that the general could bring to us. And you know, he knows how to mobilize community efforts. He has background in management and business, and I'm just glad to have him aboard. And I know he knows how to give commands.
He knows how to give. Was there one specific intangible outside of some of the, to you, Mayor, some of the resume and experience, because it's vast, but was there one specific intangible in the conversation that you said, that's the thing?
Well, it was during our conversation when he was taking notes, when we talked about issues and listening, and I could see that he was strategically thinking about how we could respond. Mm-hmm. And you know, when you have someone who works that closely with you, I will tell you the other issue is that there was he not only had the credentials, but we had the chemistry.
What was the reason you wanted to do this?
Well, first off, the mayor asked me. No, I spent 38 years in uniform serving the people of this nation and this state and Baton Rouge, you know, and so when you're a servant and you have a servant's heart, it's hard to give those up. And so after I retired, I moved back into the private sector, and I've known the mayor for quite some time. I've always admired her integrity and the way she went about her business. So when she called, it was almost impossible for me to say no.
What do you add to the Broome administration?
Well, as the mayor mentioned, you know, my last 14 years in the National Guard, I was the commander of the National Guard under two governors, as she mentioned. But before that, I was a chief of staff for 6 years. And so when you run an 11,000 person organization with hundreds of millions of dollars in funding, a lot of the principles and the business practices and the organizational execution are much the same. And so I hope to bring that experience forward to her.
What do you see as the biggest asset? And we got about a minute, we'll take a break and come back. But what do you see as the biggest asset Baton Rouge has now as someone who's in management and city parish government?
The people. I mean, Baton Rouge is just a great city. You know, I've loved it ever since I came to LSU many moons ago. So I think it's the people and the caring nature that they have.
And then where we're going right now, 30 seconds. Okay, I'll put this question out here and you'll have a couple minutes to think about it. We'll come back and talk a little bit about 2023. Mm-hmm. And then your vision first now coming in, because you have this new fresh perspective, and then what the mayor has in store for the city of Baton Rouge and the parish. Talking to Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome and the new CAO in city parish government, Glenn Curtis. Back for another segment in just a moment. All right, back for another segment. We went into commercial break talking about 2023. So, and I'll ask you first because you're the new kid on the block going in here. I'm sure you're still learning who's who and what's what and where's where in City Hall. But if you're thinking, and I know you're thinking forward about next year, what's top of mind for you?
Well, so I mean, the mayor always sets the priorities, right? Right. And my job now is to help achieve her priorities and execute those. But front and center, as was previously discussed, is security for the city of Baton Rouge, and how do we continue to grow that and improve it within our neighborhoods and among the citizens of the city. Infrastructure is always a big deal. The stormwater, those are priorities. And then I hope to be able to offer some of my experience internally to see how we might become more efficient and more effective in the way we deliver services to the city of Baton Rouge.
Then what do you say, Mayor? Same thing. I know you've got a big picture vision for the year, because you have to be, because you're the mayor president. But what's top of mind for you?
Well, I will tell you, certainly capitalizing on the wins that we have accomplished, like in our unemployment rate, our economy, but also giving a refreshed approach to some of our challenges, our fresh approach. And you see me hesitating to say a lot because guess what? On January 4th,
I knew that was coming.
I'm going to have my State of the City address. Right. So I'm not going to give you a preview right now.
I knew that was coming.
And that's why I'm not saying a lot.
All right,
so,
come on. A little scoopage wouldn't hurt.
Stay tuned. January 4th, I'm really looking forward to next year's, 2023 State of the City address.
That's the first Wednesday of the year,
Correct.
And where's it going to be?
Well, it is hosted by the Rotary Club, but we also may have another opportunity for people who may not be at the Rotary Club, or who may not hear it, to have an opportunity to have access to what's going to take place at that
So
State
I
of the
already
City.
know the week we're going to be calling you to come back to be on the show again to talk about what's in there.
Sounds like a plan.
I got a couple minutes here. You know, this is the other thing we've talked about. The mayor mentioned it. Actually, unemployment here is very low. The economy of the city is doing well. Whether people would believe it or not, this is the lowest amount of homicides that we've had here in 3 years. The perception becomes people's reality, but it doesn't have to be true. So how do you better get the word out about what Baton Rouge is doing, to the mayor's point about the wins? What do you think?
Yeah, I think with law enforcement, you know, in my background in the military, one of the main things is just communication and being engaged with the neighborhood, with the city, to make sure that we have our finger on the pulse of what's happening and where it's happening at, and how do we deter that or prevent it. But additionally is to stay engaged in those neighborhoods, so that we can help control crime in the city or whatever happens.
You know, we got about a minute left, and a lot of families are dealing with, I mean, these kids who were killed earlier this week and dealing with losses. Is there anything you would like to say to the people of the city and the parish as we wrap up in the last minute or so?
Yes, I want to reiterate and emphasize hope. Sometimes if you look at our nation, if you look at our communities, if you look at the challenges we're facing, they can almost be overwhelming and smothering to the average citizen, to the average family. And what I want our citizens to do is to hold fast to hope. And I believe that when we unite around the positives that are taking place in our city, which are far more than the negatives, then it infuses our hope and elevates us to a better season in our lives.
Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome, Major General Glenn Curtis, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to both of you.
And same to you and your family.
Y'all have a great weekend. I would say stay dry, but who knows with this weather. Stay cool, maybe. See you next week.